analysis and interpretation methods. We will be starting the webinar shortly. We are waiting for more participants to join us. So today's webinar is more on the various methods associated with the data that you have. So how to collect, how to analyze, and how to interpret it. This is a different kind of a webinar, and we have not done this kind of a webinar till now. So it will be very useful for all the participants in that way to understand as how you can go ahead with the various methods pertaining to data. So even before I start with the webinar, let us have a brief idea of who are we and who is conducting this webinar and what is that we do. We will be starting the webinar shortly. We are waiting for more participants to join us. So whoever have joined us, please sit back, relax. There is a live question answer session at the end of the webinar, which we will be utilizing to answer all your questions. So you please focus on the webinar first, and then we'll answer your questions. So having said that, this webinar is being conducted by research graduate. So let me introduce you to who we are. Yeah, so so a little bit about research graduate. Now, we are the best PhD and master's consulting company. We offer a wide variety of services to international and national students. So we cater to different kinds of needs of the students. Some of them have been listed out here. As you can see, we help you with topic selection. We help you with proposal writing. If you have already returned the review paper or research paper, we can help you with modifying it and making it much better for publication. Then we help you with thesis writing as well as master's dissertation writing. If you have done everything but you are not in a position to analyze your data, we will help you with, statistical analysis, editing, proofreading, and formatting the, the data, whatever you have. And so in that way, we are here to help you out in different means. Now, these are some of the general services which we offer to you. However, there might be different kinds of services which you are expecting from us. So in such a case, we are here to help you out even with that. So if you have any queries related to, you could always come back to us and you can ask us, and there is no problem. Don't worry about the nature of the query. It could be as small as possible, but we are here to address your queries and see if we can help you out in that manner. So if you are stuck in any part of your thesis writing, if you are stuck in any part of review paper or research paper writing, we are here to help you out with that. Or if you are unable to start with it and then you want right from us to do from the topic till the writing work, that also we could do. You drop in your query with us, then we will come back with the appropriate suggestions. And then if you are going to further pursue it, we will work out with the quotations and get it done. We have a dedicated team who is here to help the international as well as national researchers for any kind of work that you want. Here, so if you want to contact us, here is what it is. So research graduate email ID is info@researchgraduate.com. So, or you can contact us as WhatsApp phone number, which is provided here, or we have the research graduate website, which is researchgraduate.com. Any of the means you try to contact us. Do not be hesitant if you have any query which you think is trivial and that we can't answer for you. You just post in your query and we are here to see if we can answer you in the best possible manner. So please go ahead. Contact us by any of the means which is provided on the screen. Drop in your queries and we will see in what best way can we, help you out as such. So having said that, this is the general outline at Research Graduate. We have dedicated team members who are expert writers. Then we have research consultants who can, talk to you and tell you what exactly are the requirements. Then they will try to understand your requirements, and, they will help you out to communicate with us properly so that we can write in the appropriate manner. So having said that, so please feel free to contact us and we'll see how the things would go on and help you out. So having said that, I welcome all the participants for today's webinar. A warm good afternoon for all the participants, and I hope that you have enjoyed most of our, what do you call, the webinars which have been done earlier, and you have gotten a lot of information pertaining with the webinars as such. So appropriately in such a way, we are here again today with one of the webinars that we could be helpful for you in terms of data collection and association. So, so we will now officially start with the webinar on data collection, data analysis, and data interpretation. So here is the webinar. So let's get started with the webinar and let us try to understand what exactly and how exactly we do about with the various things. We have a live question answer session at the end of this webinar. So do not worry much about it. You just sit down and relax. Enjoy this webinar, and at the end of it, we will answer all your questions. So don't pose any questions right now, because I have observed that participants find it difficult later saying that I have not answered their questions. So please post it at the end and I will answer back to you. So let us start with the webinar now. So these are the contents associated with today's webinar. Now, there are three parts of the webinar today. One is how to collect the data. Then second is how to analyze the data, and third is how to interpret it. Now, the first part, which is data collection, consists of questionnaires. Now, today's webinar is being framed in a generalized manner. It is not for any specific field. Now, so because you can have both qualitative and quantitative data, so we have focused mainly on the various qualitative aspects, and we come back to a bit of quantitative aspects later. So here, so first is what is, so we are going to talk about questionnaire design, which is an integral part of data collection. So we see what exactly is questionnaire design, what is the purpose of questionnaire design, how exactly has to be a questionnaire designed. So that's the steps which are involved in designing the questionnaire, which include the defining the aims of study, defining the variables, reviewing the literature, composing the draft, and assembling the final questionnaire. Then we talk about, first you have designed the questionnaire, then we talk of how you collect the data. There are different approaches for collecting the data. So in which we have, one is structured approach, one is semi-structured approach, and then you have a then you have an unstructured approach. Then if you are trying to design the questionnaire, and the questionnaire is useful for measuring the outcomes, what are the characteristics of good measures? What are the various obtrusive and non-obtrusive methods or unobtrusive methods which are used? Then we talk about the tools for collecting data. What are the various tools that you have? There are many of them which we'll be discussing today. The participatory methods, records and secondary data. Entire data collection could be classified into primary collection methods and secondary collection methods. We're going to talk of all of them. Then we are going to talk about quantitative and qualitative data analysis, tools to collect and present data, basic analytical methods which are used for interpretation of the data and softwares that are there. Then that is for analysis softwares, and data interpretations and softwares used for data interpretation. And then you have data conclusion as such. So thus you have different kinds of them which are used for the present purpose. So we are going to discuss all of them as such. Having said that, Let us start now with what is questionnaire design. As the name itself suggests, you are designing a series of questions, and through the questions, you are gathering data. And the ones from whom you are gathering data are nothing but respondents. So, questionnaire design is used to collect data in both qualitative and quantitative methods of research. So you have questionnaires in quantitative data where numbers are involved. The questionnaire will be different from qualitative one. Then questionnaires are commonly used in social sciences and health sciences as well as in market research, because that's where we try to see the impact or outcome of a given particular, what do you call, a component on the entire population as what's happening. For example, in market research, you want to know the feedback about a recent customer service experience. Then you design an appropriate questionnaire, you give it to the respondents, and then it goes appropriately. And in psychology, researchers need questionnaire as their main tool. In many of the slides today, I will be using the word instrument in many places, because when you are doing experimental data, you use instruments for measurement. When you are doing qualitative data, the instrument is nothing but the questionnaire. So psychological researchers investigate health risk perceptions using questionnaire. Thus, questionnaire is a central aspect of most of the research studies which is done, and so becomes a very important aspect associated with the, what do you call, is data collection. So, questionnaire design is the process of designing the format and questions in the survey instrument. There's an important point all the participants have to know here. What is the difference between questionnaire and survey? When we say questionnaire and survey, survey is the overall analysis of the hypothesis that you want to get going on. A questionnaire is a part of the survey in itself. So questionnaire design is the process of designing the format and questions and is an inclusive aspect of survey. Now, you want to identify and understand a particular phenomenon, so you need to collect data. And in most of the cases, you will collect the data in the form of questionnaire. While designing a questionnaire, it's important that you remember the various stages of survey design and you implement all the various stages in the questionnaire when you are developing it. Now, what exactly is a survey? A survey is a type of a research method wherein which you collect, analyze data from a group of people. Now, a questionnaire is a key aspect of survey which is useful for collecting the data. So when you are making the questionnaire, you have to remember that the various aspects associated with survey have to be put together clearly. Then, what are the features of a questionnaire? There are 9 important elements which are considered when you are framing the questionnaire. The first and the most important one is it should reflect the goals, objectives, and the research question. Because overall, why are you doing the survey becomes very important. If you know why you are doing the survey, you know the goals and objectives of the survey, the questionnaire should reflect that. The key concepts associated with the survey should be reflected in the questionnaire very clearly. The hypothesis and the relationship between variables that you are planning to evaluate must be reflected in the questionnaire. What is the choice of the method that you want to use? Do you want to do telephonic interviews? Do you want to do online interviews? Do you want to do face-to-face interviews? That needs to be given very clearly in the questionnaire as such. Then, the way the questions are constructed in a questionnaire is the most important aspect. When you are doing a survey, the outcome of the survey will depend on how good is your questionnaire. If you have not framed the questions properly, then your survey will be inconclusive, which means you do not know how to make it proper. Then, what exactly is the sampling size? What is the size? What is the group of the individuals that you're trying to analyze? Why do you take only that much sample? What is the necessity to do it? Then questionnaire administration and data collection. So how will you give the questionnaire to the respondents? Is it feasible for the respondents to answer the questions? And then how will you collect the data? Then you come with data summarization, analysis, conclusion, and interpretation with the results. These 9 elements are the key elements of questionnaire. They need to be incorporated in such a way that any expert who sees the questionnaire understands what you are trying to do and how you are trying to do it out. Now, what is the purpose of the questionnaire? So we have seen what is questionnaire design and what are its features. Then what is the purpose of the questionnaire? The main purpose of the questionnaire is to collect data. There's nothing else more than that. You have a set of respondents, and from the respondents, you are trying to extract the data. Now, questionnaire-based methods are easy, quick, inexpensive, and very efficient when you have large sets of respondents. You just give on the questionnaires, you collect the data, then you can analyze it. Because experimental part for such large sets will take ages, a long time. So using this will be easiest. But most important factor, which is important, is questionnaire isn't just the process of analyzing the responses. Questionnaire is trying to answer the survey that you are trying to do. Hence, survey is the overall part and questionnaire is a subset of the survey. Then, in most of the cases, I said questionnaires in most of the cases are like, they are used for many of them in social sciences, in health sciences, and all other places. So the questionnaires in clinical research are the most common type. So when you're doing clinical trials, when you're doing clinical aspects associated with treatment, most of the cases you deal with questionnaires or interviews. The validity of the entire survey will depend upon the quality of questions. If the questions are not proper, then you are in real trouble because the survey is inconclusive. Now, there are several reasons why the questions have to be designed properly. First of all, you are not just asking a question in questionnaire. The question is testing a variable and predicting an outcome. So each question is predicting an outcome. So it is a measure of a certain parameter. It's not just a question in itself. Each question must provide a valid and reliable measure. The questions must clearly communicate the research intention to the survey respondent. Now, the questions that are framed must be having a flow, they must be logical, and they must be clear so that they keep the respondent interested in answering the questions and he'll cooperate for answering them. Now, if you make questionnaires in a way that the respondent loses interest, then he'll just back out of the questionnaire survey, and then you are in trouble because your group size for the survey keeps getting reduced. So it is very important that you have to be logical, clear, and there is a flow in the questionnaire, which becomes very, very important. Otherwise, you cannot have, proper results for the survey. Now, there are certain aspects which have to be considered when you are doing the survey research, which includes what are called as the quality aims. Now, first and the most important quality aim for survey research is valid. It's validity. Whatever are the questions you are framing, they are nothing but termed as measures because each question gives an outcome in the form of a measurable parameter. So the measures that you are using measures the quantity or concept that is supposed to be measured, meaning the validity. It should be valid in the sense which means that whatever is the concept that you are proposing that has a sense for it, then it should be reliable. Reliable in the sense that it is consistent or reproducible. If somebody else picks this questionnaire and tries to do for his own, then you have to get the similar results. It should be unbiased in the sense whatever you are measuring, it should be a true value. It should be statistically significant and there should be no risk of bias, meaning you are not trying to put in your opinion by doing the questionnaire. You are trying to give the neutral opinion of what comes out. Then it should be discriminating, meaning it should tell which respondents are properly answering it and which respondents are not properly answering it out, which is equally important. It should be in a position to distinguish between the proper responses and versus the responses which are not appropriate or which do not exactly fit the survey aspects that are required as such. Now, having said that, now we move to the next step. The next step that you have here is steps to design a questionnaire. So what are the various steps that you have to design a questionnaire? Now, there are multiple aspects here. Though it looks like for the participants, it's just a questionnaire, so you can make it, but unfortunately, it is not like that. The reason is that a questionnaire is a reflection of your survey, and the outcome of the questionnaire decides the outcome of the survey. So there are many aspects which have to be considered and which have to be utilized. So one, you have to identify your research aims and the goals of your questionnaire very clearly. So while designing the questions, what exactly is your objective of the survey and what is the aim of this survey has to be obtained very clearly. Then you need to know what are the kind of questions that you want to put in for your questionnaire. That means you need to know what kind of data you want to get out from the survey. So the questionnaire has to be done appropriate to it. What is the main objective of the questionnaire? Then there are already existing questionnaires which you have in the literature, and many people think that they can use the existing questionnaires and they can do it, but unfortunately you cannot reuse a questionnaire, because that will land you up in very difficult situation, because it was already done by someone. You are just testing the reproducibility of it. You are not doing anything, so that doesn't make sense. You need to have novelty of what you are doing and how you are doing. Then first step, once you are drafting the questions, first step is you need to define the variables, because based on the variable you have the outcome. Write a detailed list of the information that needs to be collected and concepts that need to be measured in the study. For example, are you trying to identify the attitude or attitudes amongst the different respondents, or the needs of the respondents, the behavior, or the demographics? Demographics would mean like in which areas do they belong to and how they are behaving, or a combination of many of these. So you have to put in a lot of thinking process when you are doing the questionnaire. You have to consider what are the variables that you want and how you are going to use those variables appropriately. Then, based on this, now once you have the variables, how do you translate the variables into the outcome which is measurable? You have to define the role of each variable such that it can fit into statistical analysis. Now, these three terms are basically statistical. One is predictor. That means the variable predicts the outcome. Confounder means the variable tries to correlate with the outcome. It might not exactly predict it. Outcome itself is direct. So the variable could be a predictor, confounder, or it could be directly an outcome in itself. So you should design the variables in such a way that they are, measurable and they give a predictable outcome. That's very important. Otherwise, you will be in trouble. Then, second part, review of literature. Now, reviewing the current literature is always a good idea, whether you're doing for paper, for questionnaire, or any one of them. Reviewing the literature is useful because it tells you the questionnaire that you are trying to design, is it already existing or is it different from the existing ones? Now, so reviewing the current literature to identify related surveys and data collection questions will help you to come up with newer questions. It saves the development time. It also helps you to compare it with the other studies. Now, one important aspect here, as I have already said, if you are trying to make questionnaire which matches with already existing questionnaire, then you are having a subset of it. That means you have to be careful because already somebody has done it and he has interpreted it. You are trying to change the way it is being interpreted. So you have to move with caution, and then only you could do it out, and then only you could work it out as such. Now, once you have the variables have been framed and they have been put forth for appropriate measurable outcomes, you need to define your target audience or respondents. Usually when you are framing the survey and making the questionnaire, the audience already gets decided. Clearly, you can't test everyone because you can't put the questionnaire everywhere to everyone. There are restrictions with respect to target audience. So you have to identify the groups of audience to whom you can provide this. Usually when you are doing a questionnaire design, there are two kinds of designs which are done. One is called the longitudinal design, other is called the cross-sectional design. The basic difference between them is, if you are doing the questionnaire analysis over time and you are trying to look how variables change over time, then it becomes longitudinal design. However, if that is not the case, then you have cross-sectional, meaning you are just looking for how the variables interact at a particular given time point. Then it is cross-sectional. So one helps you to understand over time how it behaves. Other helps you to understand at any given time how the behavior is. So you need to decide whether you want to do longitudinal design or you are going to do cross-sectional design. And that's based on which you will go ahead and further pursue it. Now, once you decide the design of the questionnaire, you develop the variables, then you know that they are measurable outcomes, you have to develop the questions. So it's going very systematically. So the participants need to understand that we are going one step after other, dissecting out how to start from scratch for making a questionnaire. So you need to develop questions. The questions need to be smart. And so they should form the crucial or crux of the survey. For it is very important that the questions are designed in a way that there are no ambiguities or misunderstandings. Then, if the questions are not proper, then the questionnaire given to respondents will give you mixed results. And when you get mixed results, then it messes up your whole survey and hence it's of no much use. Now, it's one more important aspect that needs to be remembered here is the age group for which the questionnaires are being given. If you are giving for very young kids or giving for old people, you have to consider their cognitive, attentional, and sensory competencies. Meaning, if you are giving right questionnaires that have to be written and filled, can elderly people or kids fill it? Do we have to change the way we are doing it? You have to think of those things. And don't use complex technical languages in questionnaire because the respondents are laymen. They don't understand what you say because you are from proper research side. You try to put in things, then you need to have communication with them to explain what it is. So it should be simple. On the other hand, it should be smart and it should not have any ambiguities or confusions so that people understand and answer your questionnaire very clearly. Then, what are the nature of the questions that are needed? So what are the questions that you choose? There are two kinds of questions which you have here. They are called open-ended questions or closed-ended questions. In case of exploratory questionnaires, explorative ones, you use open-ended questions. If you are in contrast, if it's a quantitative questionnaire, you'll use closed-ended questions. Means the researcher knows what he's definitively asking. What exactly is an open-end question and what's a closed-end question? So when you come to that, here is how it goes. An open question is something like, what do you like about the webinar? So when I'm asking a question like, what do you like about the webinar? I can answer in any way I want. There are no constraints here. You can say like, yes, I like the webinar for its presentation, or I like the webinar for the slides which are prepared. I like the webinar for, any other purposes. On the other hand, a closed question is like, the webinar was useful. A, you strongly agree. B, you agree. C, you can't decide. D, you agree. And E, you strongly disagree. So in that way, closed-end question is highly specific. You are not giving the option to the respondent to present his opinion. You're just asking the respondent to answer a yes or no. An open question is not yes or no. He can give the answer as how he wants. So that's the difference between an open question and a closed question. Closed questions are used when the surveys are highly specific, so they don't need anything as such. Whereas open questions are the ones in which if the survey is not very, specific, then you can go about and do the open question parts. Then, once you know what you want, then you design the question sequence and overall layout. You know whether you want an open-ended question or a closed-ended question. So you know the variables, you know the outcomes. Then you design the questionnaire. After optimizing each question, now put all the questions together and see how the flow is. If the flow is not proper, interchange the questions in such a way that there is a proper layout and flow for the entire questionnaire. See if they are proper transitions or not. In many of the cases, all the questions are not valid to all the respondents. So there should be an option of skipping specific questions by a respondent, because it's not necessary the respondent wants to answer everything. So if sometimes there are some adverse side effects for a drug in a questionnaire, the respondent is not interested in telling some of the, or side effects, he should have the option of skipping it. So then if he skips, are there any follow-up questions which are associated with it? So all these points have to be considered. You have to optimize, then you have to make a layout. It has to be logical. Is it possible that anything can be skipped? And if it is skipped, are there any follow-up questions for them? So all these various aspects have to be thoroughly considered and utilized. Only when and when you can have what are called as the related aspects associated with it. So having said that, once you have made the layout, once you have got out with proper questions and you have reorganized them, run a pilot study. Now pick up the questionnaire and then you give this questionnaire to some of the target respondents whom you are trying to think of. Give it to experts as well as to target respondents. You get back with the comments from them, what exactly they are, how they are, and so on. So when you give it back to them and when you get it in that way, get back the comments, incorporate the comments, and then you see how it goes. When you give the questionnaire to pilot participants, you will better understand whether the questionnaire is understandable, or there are any confusions with the questionnaire, and if they are, how to overcome them. So running a pilot study always becomes important once you have designed the final questionnaire, because that will tell you whether it can go for proper questionnaire or not. Okay, then this is the outline which we have made for steps to design a questionnaire. So step 1, whatever I have said till now is summarized here. You are defining the research question and the scope of survey. Step 2, you are identifying the main concepts which are important to be measured. That's nothing but the variables and their outcome as measures. Step 3, you identify indication based on the concepts of interest. Step 4, design a questionnaire and mode of administration. Step 5, do a pilot study, test it out, and come out with the final questionnaire, which could be utilized very well. So this, in a nutshell, summarizes what I was talking about, steps to design a questionnaire. So now we move ahead and proceed with the next one. Now, what are the different kinds of questionnaires that you will see in any of the field? There are 3 kinds, namely structured, unstructured, and semi-structured or quasi-structured. A structured questionnaire, when you say, has pre-coded questions with defined answers. So the respondents will be given a format in which they are questions which are enclosed with probable answers for them. They have to mark the appropriate answer and then they have to go on. And they are well-defined skipping patterns. If you don't want to answer this question, there'll be an option there. I don't wish to answer, and you can go to the next one. Most of the quantitative data collections are based on structured questionnaires. The advantage of structured questionnaires are they are easy to be done. Then there are very few discrepancies and very easy for data management, because once you have the answers from the questionnaire, you convert it into numbers, get out with a pictorial forms, and then you understand the pattern associated with it. So that is how will be a structured questionnaire, and this is what it is. As you can see here, there are questions or statements which are put forth. Then there is rating or so. My manager considers my feelings. Strongly disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. My well-being is a priority for my manager. My manager defends me from unfair, unfair criticism. So there are 3 such questions. You answer them, they collect it, and for each of them they will give a rating in terms of, okay, if it is like this, then 1 point for agree, 1 point for disagree, and so on. Then they convert it into numbers, then they put forth with the graphs, and you get it done with it. Then unstructured questionnaires. They are, yeah, and one more point in structured questionnaires is that they, in that case, they are most of the cases closed statements or closed questions, wherein which they are predefined. Unstructured questionnaire has open-ended questions. They are vague. The researchers frame the questions, then they change the questions when they are giving it to the respondents. So it is on the hands of the researcher what questions he comes to ask, what he doesn't want to ask. The moderator or enumerator has to elaborate the sense of the question to respondent, because they are not predefined. If the respondent doesn't understand the question, you are supposed to explain it to him, and then only you get the answer. Focus group discussions are the examples of such a questionnaire, which are called as unstructured. Now, here is the unstructured questionnaires you have. Now, for example, do you intend to buy a new car within the next 6 months? That's like a vague question. Who knows whether you want to buy or not? Yes. So you leave it open for the person to answer. What is your occupation? Who is your favorite professor? Now, these are all not straightforward questions. Yes, because respondents, not all of them will answer it directly. They can go in any way. So rather, if you put forth like so and so, like Dr. Srinivas is my favorite professor, you agree, you don't agree, or you don't wish to answer. That will be a structured questionnaire. Here it is highly unstructured as such. Then you come to quasi-structured or semi-structured questionnaire. Here, some of the questions are pre-coded and some of the questions are like, some are closed and some are open-ended questions. So you have the alternative of going with both and answering them. Now, some you definitively need predefined. For some, you don't need it. That's why it's called quasi-structured questionnaire. Now, here is an example that you have. What purpose do you use web-based resources? For research work, to write assignments, to improve subject knowledge. So you have to pick up here clearly what is that you want. But there is an option here. For the purpose of seminar presentation, any others, please specify. You're making it open-ended. So thus it's a mixed version of both closed and open-ended, and hence you find that it is quasi-structured questionnaire. Now, this is the comparison and pros and cons between structured versus quasi or semi-structured. The pros of structured questionnaire include you can collect unambiguously and easily the answers. There's a high level of reported concordance with medical record data. The cons of structured questionnaire is response choices may not be comprehensive, because some of the respondents might not be sure as how to answer it because they want an open-ended feature there. Respondents may interpret the questions differently, yes, and there is a scope for bias here. The reason why you can have bias is like sometimes respondents don't know how to answer. So then all the various respondents might come back with the same answer, which looks like as though it's a biased one. It is not the case, but then that's where you will have issues with when you have structured questionnaires. So having said that, that's what is about questionnaire design, and that's how we do the questionnaire design. So we have covered the basic aspects of questionnaire design. We come to the part interlinking questionnaire design with data collection. Unless you don't have the questionnaire, you can't collect the data. So thus both get interlinked. Data collection is a process of collecting, measuring, and analyzing accurate insights for research using standard validated techniques. Now that's pretty self-explainable. A researcher evaluates his hypothesis through the data he has collected. In most of the cases, it's primary data, which is used in field of research, but you can also have secondary data, which is useful depending on the information that is requested or that is needed. Now, how do you conduct data collection? Here is how it is. You have different forms of it. So qualitative data collection tools include online forms. So when you say online forums, you have so many of them. Like you have WhatsApp, you have Twitter, you have LinkedIn, you have so many of the places where you can post your questionnaire and you can collect out. Then they are groups. You can form groups in any of these what do you call, chatting online platforms. And in the groups, you can post the questions and you can get the answers. You can have web survey chats, which are dedicated. Then you have online communities, like they are communities for diabetes, communities for cancer therapy, communities to understand the responses of ecological changes. They are communities for psychological evaluations based on environmental changes, and so many as such. These are all online. Offline is in-depth interviews where you have face-to-face interviews with the person, and then you collect and you report, you draft the data, and then you conclude from it as such. So any of these methods is useful for data collection. Now, here as how you can see how to conduct the data collection. Now, these are the various ones, a comparison between online versus offline methods. Phone surveys. So you are doing a telephonic interview with the people. So there's a high level of confidence. You know that he's a participant who is participating. And then you can collect the information and you can utilize it. But however, if you have a large number of respondents, like 100, 200, 300, then you need to hire an agency wherein which you can use and get it done. So that's a major disadvantage. With phone surveys, you need to hire an agency which could be used for it. Now, whereas if you have online surveys, then you don't need phone and all. Just fill in, post the survey. The respondent self-manages it. There is accuracy of data, but you need a very good internet connection for doing that. In-person interviews are in-depth interviews. They are very time-consuming. Now, the respondent needs to dedicate a specific amount of time to do the in-person interview. In most of the cases, they are not in a position to do it out. And since they are not in a position to do it out, so it's the trouble that you go for online instead of offline. Then, before we start with the data collection, it's important to understand what are the types of research data that you have. The data may be grouped into 4 main types based on the methods for collection, which include observational, experimental, simulational, and derived. Now, observational data, as the name itself says, observational data are captured through observation of a behavior or activity. It is collected from human observation, open-ended surveys, or use of an instrument or a sensor to monitor and record information. So it's mainly the observation skills of the researcher which are made use of. Then experimental, as the name itself suggests, you have to have experiments done, you collect the data, you analyze how the variable varies with respect to the data that is collected. It's a typical research process wherein which a relationship is drawn and projected between variables and the outcomes. Simulation data, as the name itself says, is computational. You are going into the operation of real-world process or system using computer-tested models. In most of the cases, it's useful for economic models, chemical reactions, seismic activities, and weather condition predictions. Derived is nothing from secondary data sources that you have. You are not doing any experiments here, but you get the data and you derive from whatever is existing. Now, this is the comparison which you have between quantitative versus qualitative data. Now, when you are having qualitative data, the qualitative data is highly textual and visual. So you can see it and interpret it and read it. The goal is only to understand the analysis. Now, it's very iterative, meaning it repeats itself because you apply the same procedure for a lot of data. And it's inductive in nature, meaning you make a lot of deductions from the available data. You don't worry so much about it. Whereas quantitative all deals with numbers. Here you try to tell accurately whether it is significant or not, and you use a lot of statistical methods. It's guided by researchers and hence is highly, specific as such. Yeah, sorry for the interruption. I hope now you can hear me clearly as such. So, what I was saying was that the quantitative versus qualitative data, it is, in case of quantitative data, it's guided entirely by the researchers. And so, you know that it is very specific. To you, let me switch it on once. Yes, and let me see once. 1 minute. Yeah, hello. Yeah. I think there's some internet connectivity at your end and something is happening out. Yeah. Okay. Okay, fine. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sorry for the delay. I think there was some problem with the audio issue. I hope that now you can hear us. So I was talking about quantitative versus qualitative data. So in that way, I was saying that quantitative is highly numerical. The goal is to quantify the magnitude of variables and relationships, and it's guided entirely by the researchers. So thus it becomes very specific and hence, is very different from qualitative research. Now, this is the example which I put forth for quantitative versus qualitative. Now, in quantitative, 20% of the survey respondents bought ice cream today. So that's how it's quantitative. Like you are giving the numbers here, like of the total respondents, 20 of them have got the ice cream. When you're talking of qualitative, it says, I bought the ice cream because I saw it when I was in the checkout line. I wanted to treat myself. Now that's the difference between quantitative versus qualitative. The average amount spent on ice cream by 500 respondents was $5. So in that way, you have in both the ways the quantitative aspect, whereas here you have the qualitative aspect. So 50% of the people in New York strongly enjoy pizza. I like a lot of toppings on my pizza. See the difference between quantitative versus qualitative. On an average, respondents rate their grocery store a 3.5 out of 5. The grocery store has good options in general, but the lines can be long as they are often out of stock of my favorite brands. So, in one case onto the right, you are talking all about the quality and you are not talking anything other than that. On the other side, you are talking about the quantity and you are trying to say how much it is and what it is. So, you are trying to make it more meaningful as such. Now, having said that, let us come to the structured approach for data collection. Again, as how it's like a questionnaire, even for data collection, you will have structured, unstructured, and semi-structured approaches again. The structured approach for data collection, the whole data is collected in the same way, and that's how it is. It is important for multi-site and cluster evaluations when you are doing, meaning when you are trying to clustering groups together from a large number of data, you collect the data in the same way and then you group them together. This is very useful when you are making comparisons between different groups for the same treatment. Structured data accumulation is very formal and it gets you out with a lot of facts. The interviewer poses questions which are predefined and prearranged. There are two sections in the structured questionnaire which include disguised and non-disguised. So you can have a structured disguised questionnaire or non-disguised. So we will now try to say what it is and how it is. Now, the common forms of structured data that you have include are HTML or XML files. You can have database records which you can directly access, or spreadsheets in the form of Excel or any other related forms. When you talk of structured disguised ones, here what exactly happens is that the researcher interviews the respondents, but he doesn't tell what is the final objective of the study. So the objective of the study is not told. It's only just he takes the respondent's comments. Now, in non-disguised, the respondent knows everything, including what is the purpose or objective of the study. In statistical surveying, you use this non-disguised method as one of the most featured methods which is used now. Then, unstructured approach for data collection. Now, when you are talking of unstructured approach, now here you have questions which are random, which are not prearranged. You just collect the answers and then you rate them later. Therefore, in this kind of an approach, the entire responsibility is left on the researcher to ask the respondent in the way he feels it. Now, the researcher has a certain principal focuses on which he builds the inquiries to be inquired, meaning there are a certain set of principles which he utilizes. He frames the questions and he inquires the respondent based on those. Now, such a strategy is unbending in nature, meaning there is no rigidity here in the protocol. You follow the protocol the way you want, you collect the responses and you go ahead with it. Whereas in case of structured questionnaire, it's rigid. You can't change anything there. Since it is predefined, you go with it in that way and you finish it off. Typically, this sort of technique is utilized as a part of exploratory research. When you are trying to explore data amongst a huge population, you have unstructured approach. Then you collect maximum data and you can conclude based on it. And so that's how they differ with one another. And that is how it goes. Then you have different methods for collecting data, which includes obtrusive versus unobtrusive methods. It's only the terminology, but the overall ways of doing it is same. Obtrusive methods are data collection methods where you collect the data directly from respondent, whoever is being evaluated. Like you're doing interviews, you're doing surveys, you're doing focus groups. Unobtrusive is you are not directly collecting the information from respondent, but you're collecting it already whatever has been posted. Like you are doing from documents which are recorded already and published, or from Google Earth, or observations from a distance. So it is indirect in nature, whereas obtrusive is direct in nature. So having said that, we now move on to the next slide. What are the ways of collecting data? There are several methods by which you can collect data, which is important. There are several methods by which you can collect data. We'll have a look and analysis as what are the various methods you have. One method, the most frequently used method, is surveys. The survey is a method in which information is collected from the group or a sample of individuals. Now, surveys are always done for a group of individuals. It's never for one. Then it's not defined as survey. It's a single individual. Now, not all surveys are meant for collecting public opinion. They are, however, they are surveys which are very specific, done in administrative, commercial, or scientific purposes. Like, for example, in government offices, you do surveys to collect how overall are the working nature of the employees. That is not for public opinion. That is for them to evaluate the employees. Therefore, whatever questions you ask in the survey need to be very wise, smart, because the question influences the outcome of the survey. It could be done in any ways, which includes phone questionnaires, standardized paper and pencil to predetermine the questions as such. So any of the ways is useful, and so is not a problem. Then the second most common type which you have is interviews. These are highly in-depth, they are formal, and they are organized. Usually, interviews are done in many of the scientific institutes, wherein which you have a research member who is a respondent and the experts interviewing them. They could be structured or unstructured discussions. Now, there are different kinds of interviews which you have here, which include structured interviews, semi-structured interviews, as well as unstructured in-depth interviews. When we say a structured in-depth interviews, in that case, yeah, they are highly organized and predefined. Unstructured is like randomized, and semi-structured is a combination of both of them that you have as such. Now, focus groups are the third type which are used. In this type, you have a group of people on whom you focus and you collect the data from them. So group interviews are used when you have limited resources. For example, you don't have so many people to interview, but they have common qualities amongst them which have to be considered. Then you go for focused group discussions. To understand the behavior, opinion, and circumstances along with the phenomena, amongst a group of people, you do collective discussion, so it becomes group interviews. To handle the cause and consequences, greater insight has to be there when you're doing focus groups, because when you're doing focus groups, you have to do it properly and systematically so that the respondents in the whole group are sticking together for the focus group discussion, and then you are implementing the various questions in uniform way for everyone and everything. So you need to have a lot more insight so that you can have a group dynamics, and accordingly you work it out as such. So that is where it becomes important. Then, so you are having variables which you have put forth as predictable outcomes. So they are nothing but the measures. So what are the characteristics of a good measure, which is important to be understood and analyzed here? A, it has to be relevant, meaning it should be related to the topic that you're talking about. It should be credible, meaning it utilizes valid methods for collecting the data. Then it is valid, how well it is. So how good it is in capturing your objective of the survey. And it should be reliable, meaning if anybody else repeats this, he should get results like what you are getting at least, or similar to, if not exactly same as such. Now, these are the various data collection methods that you have here. First are the primary data collection methods onto the left. The secondary data collections are onto the right. We have covered most of the primary data collection methods, which include statistical methods, surveys, polls, interviews, focus groups. We didn't cover Delphi technique, which I'll cover in the next slide. Then you have secondary data collection methods, which include financial reports, sales reports, government reports, missions, vision statements, and internet. So we will talk about Delphi technique first, then we will come to secondary data collections. So what exactly is Delphi technique? Now, this term is routinely used in data collection methods. It is nothing but what do you call multiple rounds of questionnaire analysis by different experts. You have a panel of experts. You are giving them the questionnaires which are filled for evaluation. So the experts, whoever are here, they evaluate the questionnaire, they come out with their opinions and they post them. Then you put all these opinions together and again send back your views and concerns to the what do you call experts. Then they look back at the comments they have sent, and then they try to add more points and get it back to you. In that way, it is what is called as wisdom of crowds, as appropriately said. As I can see, many of the participants have questions here. Please ask them at the end of this webinar. We will answer you back because it's a live question answer session. So it is nothing but wisdom of crowds. You collect the questionnaires that you have been filled, you give it to experts. The experts will go through them, give their opinion. Again, you collect the opinion and send the opinion of all the experts to each expert. Then they will understand. If they have missed out something, then again they will come back to you with final answers. So the Delphi method seeks to aggregate opinions from a diverse set of experts, and it can be done without having to bring everyone for a physical meeting. So in that way, individual panelists, if they have make their own decisions, they don't have to worry that it will impact, because finally when you get entire thing done, the most common answers are the ones which will be utilized here for framing the final conclusions. Then we come to records and secondary data. Now, secondary research or desk research is a research method which involves using already existing data. Now, existing data could be in the form of records, they could be in the form of internet, it could be public libraries or pre-filled surveys which are available. Now, secondary research is easy to do because it is cost effective when compared to primary research. And there are ways of doing secondary research. Now, this is how it is. You have to conduct the secondary research. Step 1, you identify the topic of interest. Once you identify the topic of interest, you identify which all sources can be used for collecting the information. Once you collect the information, then you combine the whole information from the various sources and you compare them. Once you compare them, you analyze and interpret the data. So you already are looking at the existing data, so you don't have to worry so much about it as such. Now, this is the comparison between primary and secondary research. In primary research, the research is conducted at the site. You collect the data. So research is conducted firsthand, you obtain the data. So the researcher owns the data. So the primary research is based on the raw data. The data is collected, it's analyzed and interpreted appropriately. However, in case of secondary research, there is nothing of your own. The research is based on the data collected from previous researches. Secondary research is based on tried and tested data, which is previously analyzed and filtered. You just collect the data, you put it together, analyze, and you write your conclusions. So thus, secondary research is a quick process as you are doing everything which is freely available, whereas primary research is costly, it's expensive, and it needs a lot of time because you have to generate the data here. Then, so these are the various aspects which have to be considered while doing data collection. So we shift our methods from data collection to data analysis now. So data analysis, when you say, you have different kinds of data analysis which is done. So quantitative data, when you are talking of, that analysis could be done in different ways. One, you can have examples in quantitative data, wherein which you're talking of rates, like what is the prevalence of mortality rate for a treatment, or what is the incidence of mortality in a given population when you're treating with a drug. So they are mostly close-end questions. Discrete data, the data is just in whole numbers, which you have to do statistical significance. The data could be continuous, which means it's measured on a continuous scale and you just have to interpret it. There could be categories based on which you have to decide how the data has to be interpreted, which comes for descriptive data. Or ordinal means there are no categories. There's only like either age or income level. So there is like categorical is where there is no ordering. Ordinal is the one where you have ordering, like based on the age, based on the income level, or any other aspects. Then qualitative data, on the other hand, is different. For example, what does age 47 feel like? You're just giving your responses. So there is no measurable aspect here. You could have perceptions, which are used for analyzing. You have quotations for analysis, or you have experiences and observations for analysis. And in most of the cases, they are open-ended questions here, which are used for analysis and for comparison. Then, data analysis is important in one aspect is the way you present the data. When you are presenting your data, you're analyzing and presenting it. You just don't go ahead and present the data just like that. You have to analyze and then you present it out. So data presentation forms an integral part of academic studies as well as in market, industrial, and commercial research activities. And it's highly professional in nature. Presentation needs that you understand your data and you have analyzed it. It is necessary to make use of collected data, which is nothing but raw data. It must be processed so that it can be used for application. Now, data analysis helps in interpretation of data and helps to take a decision or answer for the research question which has been raised specifically. Now, data presentation, when you are doing it out, it is done utilizing various tools and software. Analysis starts with collection. First, you collect the data, then you process the data. Processing is done by multiple methods where you have softwares again. The processed data helps you to get information from the raw data so that you can understand what it is. And so that means you have analyzed the data, then you present the data. The presentation is done in pictorial forms, either in the form of charts, maps, or other methods. And the representation is dependent on the available data. The data could be in the form of tables, it could be in the form of text format, it could be as data sets, data points, or any other available versions. So we take the data, we convert the raw data into appropriate format, then we try to evaluate it, so you present it in a pictorial fashion. Now, there are different forms of data the presentation. The most common forms are what are enumerated here. One is textual, meaning you put in a lot of text to explain the data. Raw data with proper formatting, it's categorized, it's properly indentated, is used and presented. Text format is widely used in books, reports, research papers, and in the research articles itself. Now, numerical is based on a large number, a huge amount of data in digits or numbers. It's often combined with the text form to put, but it has its value of its own, because when you are taking numbers, you are putting the numbers together as charts, and when you are putting it as charts, you're connecting and getting it done. Now, numbers also form basics of computers and binary language, and hence if you are in computational coding, then the data presentation exclusively will be in the coded format as such. Then you can have image or pictorial versions. You are presenting a picture of the data. So a picture is worth a million texts. That's what they say. So if you are putting a picture properly, you don't have to explain it too much. It will work out very easily. Image can be and you are discussing based on that. Then maps are another feature which you have. Various types of maps are available all throughout the world. Maps are now not restricted to showing geographical boundaries and hold much more value. They help in presenting the data such as topography, pollution levels, heat, demographic data, thematic, as well as temporal changes. Apart from whatever have been discussed here, you have other types. Which are important. There are several other forms which include like signals, special codes, encrypted data, symbols, markings, etc. as such. So these are all the other forms which are all used again as such very specifically. So having said that, we further proceed ahead with other aspects of data presentation, in which what exactly is the data analysis done with. Data analysis helps in content analysis and understanding the results of survey. So you have a huge amount of data collected. Unless you present it by analyzing, it is not possible to proceed ahead with it. Graphical forms are the most widely used methods for data presentation. Now, the input for such graphical forms is the data that you have generated, and you have the numbers based on which you draw the things. Another method used is tabular form. It's generally used to differentiate, categorize, and relate different data sets that have been done with. Now, there are different ways or charts which are used for data presentation. I think most of the, most of the participants are aware of the kinds of charts which are used for it. Now, one is the time series. So based on the time you present how the evaluation of data has happened, you have the bar charts. Most of the participants know what are bar charts, pie charts, because they are the most commonly used versions in Excel. So you have bars which are used to represent the significance of the data. Then you have combo charts or tables which show what it is and how it is. Then you can have other forms such as geomaps, scorecards, scatter charts, bullet charts, area charts, text and images. So thus you have very different kinds of representation. If you go to internet and see for the various kinds of charts, you'll get thousands of them. I just put forth the most common ones which could be used here for conclusion, and which could be useful for the participants to use as such. So thus it is very easy in that way to work it out like that. So having said that, what are the various steps for presenting and analyzing the data? Yes, they are specific set of rules which we have to use for presenting and analyzing. First and most important thing is you need to frame the objectives of the study very clearly. The data that you are collecting should show what are the objectives of the study. You collect obtained data from primary or secondary sources. You have to change the format in which the data is presented. Like, you can't just present the raw data and say, here how it is. You need to have tables, you need to have maps, graphs, whatever you want of the different chart series. I said, pick up any of them and you put it in that format. You need to sort the data, you need to group it. Okay, all the extra data needs to be discarded, and then you have to decide based on the required format which data is required, which data is not required, and then you have to put forth appropriately. Make charts and graphs to help to add visual part and analyze trends. Always remember, to all the participants who are attending the seminar today, try to have pictorial representations of the data, because it's very catchy and visual will give the patterns very easily. You analyze the trends and relate the information to fulfill the objectives of the study as such. Then the other points which you have to remember when you are making the presentations include, you need to have a predefined sequence of arguments to support your study. So you are presenting the data. You can't just present the data in pictures, but you also need to have what is called as the textual format, which is important and which will make you to understand how it is. Like, you have the pictures, along with the pictures, you need to have the appropriate justification for the pictures. Break the objectives in multiple parts and make a list of the data that needs to be collected. So you need to know what is the data, how you have. Then break the data and try to match it with each of the objectives. You have to explain the methodology that has been used for studying when you are presenting the data. Then data collection through primary survey needs to have a well-thought sampling method. Let me enumerate this. So when you are doing data collection based on the survey needs, it's important that you should explain the sampling method. What is your sampling size? Why you have chosen such a sampling size? Why you can't have less, or why you can't have more? How do you justify the results based on the sampling size? All these are important, and so your sampling methods have to be justified properly. Then only you can justify the data collection. present only the required information. Whatever excess is there, you keep it with you. If justification is required, then only you will ask or proceed with it. Do not forget to give credits and references in the end and wherever it is required. So it is quintessential in such a manner that you remember all these points and aspects, and then you work out based on this. Now, the next set of what do you call charts which I have put forth are the most common ones which are used for data presentation. The first one is area chart, as you can see here. Now, this is the evaluation of US music sales by format, meaning you have compact discs, you have cassettes, you have vinyl recorders, you have tracks, then later on you have live streaming which comes in the end. Now, it is over a period of 1973 to 2018. As you can see, in the initial phases, there were only tracks, vinyl records, and cassettes. Between 1993 to 2008, compact discs were the most popular ones for the music sales. But eventually, they got replaced by online streaming. So you directly listen to the song. You don't have to get all this and then you have to listen to it. So what I want to tell the participants from here is, see the way it has been presented is so beautiful. From this simple representation, whatever you have, I'm able to get the entire summary of what they are trying to say. And see the beautiful way it has been put forth. US music sales by format, inflation adjusted, and the chart is self-explanatory. You don't need anything. So you need to learn to present the data in this way, in any of the methods which we are putting forth here. Now, this is a bar chart. A bar chart for various different regions, Kent, Lincoln, Mersey, and York, and the revenue generated in different quarters of 2020. Now, there are 4 different regions being compared, but if you see the chart across, for example, if you take the Kent region had lower income in the first quarter, but by the time it came to last quarter of 2020, it has the highest income. Then you have the Lincoln region, which had highest in the first quarter and it decreased when it came to the last quarter. If you take the Mersey, it's almost pretty much standard. Its income has been uniform. In the York region, the income shows a dip by the second quarter, again, it maximum dip by third quarter, again, an increase by fourth quarter. So I don't even know who did this revenue analysis and all, but when I picked it up from the internet, see the beauty of the way it has been presented. It is self-explanatory. And that's how you need to present your data in an accurate format. Otherwise, you will be in trouble. Now, this is an example of a correlogram, which meaning it is correlational. You have multiple parameters or variables which you are trying to compare with one another. On this axis is the one set of variables, the same variables on other axis. So the variable 1 mpg is being compared with all these, and the variable 1 mpg, and the second one is compared with all this. The color is the indication of how good is the correlation. Extremely blue color at the scale of 1 shows a very good, like this, the variable against itself will have maximum score of 1. As you can see here, when this goes across with these, the score dips, again the score increases. The same goes here, so that's showing there is a pattern which is seen across. So thus you can use correlational ones also for your analysis. Then the next type is the scatter plot, which you have. You have weight, you have height here, and the correlation. If you can see here, there's a sort of a sigmoidal curve which you get, showing that there is an increase, showing a proper relationship between height and weight, and then it's tending to saturate in one of the cases. Now, if you pick up multiple points here and do the best fit, you'll understand which points are useful. This has just been picked for educational or representational purposes exclusively as such. Then stacked bar charts are another one which are used. As you can see here, for 4 different streets or roads, the revenue income that's generated is shown here. If you can see for different one, accessories have, in general, revenue is highest in Cherry Street for most of them. As you go to the Apple Road, it further decreases and falls off. So that's showing this place is very good for generating the revenue. And if you want to have any of your institutes there, it will be very good. Now, Heat map is a general method of you doing in biological ones, wherein which you have a large amount of data generated by microarray based methods. And once you do the microarray based methods, you generate which transcripts are abundant or which are not. The ones with green color are highly abundant. The ones in red are lowest abundance. So the heat map gives you the idea of abundance for each of the transcripts in such a way. Then these are the different ways by which you can put forth the representation. Then you have different file formats which are used. For quantitative data file, there is an example which is shown here. You have the ID for the drug, you have the drug price, and you have the drug type. Then whether it is over the counter available or its restricted availability also is put forth. And then you have why you buy it. Like the first one, if you see ID, the drug price is this much, as how you have for the different ones. So here is a comment like, no, I like the convenience, that's why I buy it. Because it is very cheap, I go there. Or it is convenient and friendly, I go there. Or because there's a free delivery, I don't go there because there is free delivery. But you have here based on the availability. So you have the data file format, which has to be interpreted based on whether it's available or not and whether it's convenient or not. And that's how you have, this is an example of a quant data file which you have. Then quantitative, that is. For qualitative ones, you have transcripts, you have audio video recordings, and social media posts, which could be used for analysis as such. Now you also do coding in qualitative data. This coding, unlike computational coding, is different, meaning if you have responses from patient in his own words, you can summarize them in form of numericals and you can get out themes. It's used in both qualitative and quantitative research. The patient insight can be useful here. There is a chance you can have a bit of bias here, but it's okay. You can use it. For example, here you can see, I like the convenience of the pharma store. So you have two aspects, convenience and price, and you are asking different respondents here. Some say it is, most of them say it is convenient, and some of them say for the price they visit, not just, some of them have both convenience and price voted as such. So this is a coding in qualitative data based on which we try to analyze and go ahead with it. Now, having said it, we move from qualitative, we move from data, what do you call, collection, data analysis. We come to the next important part of data analysis, which is statistical in nature. So you have the research question, you have the data. So in what do you call, in quantitative data, you use a lot of statistics. The most common terms used in statistics include population size n, small n is for sample size, and p statistical significance. How likely are the groups, the data, is it significant or not? If the p-value is less than 0.05, that means there's a 5% likelihood that study findings are due to chance, which means 95% of likelihood that the study is significant. Now, these are the most commonly encountered ones. So they are what are called as measures of central tendency, which you come to. Central tendency includes mean, median, and mode. These are the three parameters which are considered in statistics when you're talking of it. So the central tendency is used for the set of values to gather around the middle of the set. So these three define it. Mean, for example, is the average. If you have 10 respondents and you're working out with them, then you take average of the 10 respondents' quantitative observations and we show it as mean. Median is the middle value of the 10. So if you have like a total of, say, you have 5 respondents, then you have 1 to 5. The third value is the median value, which is usually calculated. And mode is a value which occurs most commonly. It can be used when there are skewed numerical data or there are data which are categorized as such. Then they are measures of spread. How is your data spread out? Does it even make any sense? So you use range, interquartile range, and standard deviation. Standard deviation is the most widely used one. The smaller the deviation, the more significant is your data. Larger the deviation, the less consistent is your data. Then you use crosstab. A crosstab is a table which shows relationship between multiple variables. You have two or more than two, where the table not only shows the relationship between two categorical tables. A crosstab is like a contingency table. Typical table, you only just put two variables. Here you put multiple variables, and hence you can draw conclusions between multiple variables. It also shows how the correlation changes from one variable of one group to another. Then, this is the example of a crosstab. How often do you share different content types on social media is the question. You have grouped it into educational and humorous, and you have questions here. Then on the other hand, you have business and culture and lifestyle. So you are comparing educational with these two, you are comparing humorous with these two. On the other hand, you are comparing educational and humorous, you are comparing business, culture and lifestyle. So you are doing multiple comparisons at the same time. So you can go across, you can compare and see how it is going on, and you can draw conclusions. That's how crosstab is very useful in that way. Then, the common softwares that are used for data analysis. GraphPad software or GraphPad Prism is the most widely used one. It's from a Californian corporation of the same name. It's used for scientific graphing, biostatistics, curve fitting, nonlinear regressions, and others. It is not free. You need to buy it out. Now, GraphPad Prism is suitable for both Windows and Macintosh computers. The features include it provides a statistical guidance for experts as well as for beginners. It gives you the checklist of appropriate analysis that can be performed. You can do non-linear regression with many options. You have live links wherein which you can go live and you can automatically update. It gives you automatic error bars, and thus it is very useful in that way, so that you don't have problems associated with self-analysis. So it becomes easy as such. This is an example of using the software. You get automatically on this side, it will tell you what you want to do, how you want to do. You just feed in the data, you get the outcome like this with the error bars. And so it's pretty much of publishable standard that you get with. Then SPSS. SPSS was termed as Statistical Package for Social Sciences, was first developed in 1968. SPSS was acquired by IBM in 2009, and so now they just use the same term for it. It is one of the best softwares for editing and analyzing any data. Now, SPSS can analyze any form of data in which is in Excel sheets from spreadsheets from Excel or OpenOffice, plain text files, relational databases like SQL, .SQLs, Stata, and SAS. All of them are integrated with it. Now, SPSS can do a wide variety of statistical data tests and multivariate analysis such as t-tests, chi-square tests, ANOVA, correlations, regressions, non-parametric tests, factor analysis, as well as cluster analysis even in detail. So, this is the output which comes from SPSS. You have the charts behind which are shown here. You feed in the data, that's the final conclusive one, and those are the graphs which you have. And so it is in a whole package. It's also not free. You need to get it. Then you have another one which is good called the Excel Stat. Excel Stat is an Excel add-on for data analysis. And when you are having Excel Stat, it allows you to analyze, customize, and share results within Microsoft Excel. Over 240 standard to advanced statistical features are available. Excel Stat is the preferred tool for statistical analysis in business and universities. Almost like it has around 100 lakh plus users in over 120 countries across the world. Yeah, so it's like around 1 lakh plus users and not 100 lakh plus users. So this is how the Excel stats output looks. It's a summary of how it has analyzed. This is a box plot with statistical one, and this is mostly a scattered plot in a defined manner which has been drawn. Then we come to data interpretation. Now, you have collected the data, you have analyzed the data, you need to interpret the data. It's a process of reviewing data through some predefined processes which will help assign some meaning to the data and arrive at a relevant conclusion. Data interpretation is not just for researchers, it is also for regular day to day when you are having in markets as well as in other places, because in commercial applications also you need to interpret the data. It is evident that interpretation of data is very important and needs to be done properly. Therefore, researchers should have some means of interpreting the data. There are two main methods, mainly the quantitative and qualitative methods for data interpretation. When you talk of quantitative methods, there are no specific softwares. You have to go on your own and you have to do it. When you talk of qualitative methods, then you need to have, softwares for it. Interpreting your data involves answering a series of questions about it, which include review and interpret the data in-house to develop preliminary findings, conclusions, and recommendations. You review the data and your interpretation with an advisory group. So you just can't present your data like that. Somebody needs to evaluate it and confirm that the data makes a sense. So review the data and interpret it with an advisory group or a technical committee, get out their suggestions and modify it. Review the data and your interpretation with people who will use your data. So that's with respondents in some of the cases. So it will be helpful in such a way that you come out with most logical conclusions. Now, for qualitative data, there is a software called Atlas TI, which could be used for qualitative analysis. It is a sophisticated tool that helps you to reassemble, manage your material in creative yet systematic manner. It keeps you focused on the material itself. Whether you're in anthropology, social sciences, economics, criminology, or medicine, all of them can be, used as such. It offers a wide range of media for you to work with. You can directly import coded documents, audio clips, photos, or any of them for the interpretation. Now, you can work with a wide variety of text documents in atlas.ti, which include docx, docs, ODTs, and PDFs. Once you feed in the data, it automatically searches, organizes your data, and gives the relevant results. It has a very good auto-coding operation. You can even import the data from Twitter and Reference Manager or Evernote, and you can even import data from open-ended questions. So it's very, very flexible in that way, whatever you have. Now, it has a set of tools and features that are powerful and flexible enough even to decipher complex data. Your central workspace has the resource for all your project's data. Now you can highlight, code the data segments, you can hyperlink, group, or network. You can do in any way. You can code by simply dragging the codes from your window onto Atlas TI window, and then you can navigate through the project data and get out with whatever you want. So this is how Atlas TI looks with the folders, complete, documents, codes, and all. You can obtain it and then you can use it for working out. Having said that, we come to data conclusion. So drawing conclusions becomes a very important aspect. You may often think that drawing conclusions from scientific data is something done only in science, but no, it's also done even in other cases. Now, from the evidence, you draw the conclusion carefully and clearly, and so it will answer your research question and survey question with which you have started. Now, here are the conclusions. A conclusion is drawn from the summary of findings, focuses on the answer to the problem, including the outcome of hypothesis, whether it is rejected or accepted. And hence, you have it out in that way. So having said that, these are the various integral aspects that we have for today's seminar. And with this, I officially end this webinar. We have the writing and editing services for you for any of the data related parts. Please do contact us. And now we are open for the live question answer session for the next 27 minutes or so. So please feel free to go ahead and post the questions, and I'm here to answer for you. Yeah, I just took a water break because it was so hot. Okay, I am here to answer your questions. Let me look back at the questions as what they are and who is asking them. Uh, Polomy says how to frame null hypothesis in qualitative data. Now, how to frame the null hypothesis? Now, well, that you can frame it. So you frame the question first, follow me. So once you frame the question, you will know what it is. For example, if your question is that there is this particular drug which I'm using for cancer patients, and this drug in fact helps for treatment. So the question here is, does the treatment have effect on cancer? A yes or no? Then you will have the hypothesis framed. So if you are, in your case, the treatment has no effect, either yes or no, but it is neutral, then it is null hypothesis. Otherwise, it is alternative hypothesis that proves your point as what it is and how it is. Then Polomy asks, what are the popular softwares used for data analysis and data presentation? That I have covered in my slides, so you could just use them out and see what it is. Atin says, survey on final year students only. So what kind of survey it is? I don't exactly get what you mean by final year students. What are you looking at in final year students? Is there a specific aspect that you are looking at? If you are looking at it, please do mention it, and then maybe I can help you out with it. Polomy asks, are Google Forms used for questionnaire and data collection? Maybe you can use it, but you just once have to check out with the standard protocols if they can be used. Okay, we have started with our live question answer session. So I please request that you please post your questions here. And so I'm here to answer the questions. Hello. Yeah, I'm here to answer your questions. So please do post the questions, and then I'm here to see if I can answer them. We are on with the live question answer session. So I'm waiting for the participants to post the questions as such. Yeah, Noreen Ashraf has a question. I have to publish research paper for my PhD in library and information sciences. Which journal is better for research scholars in social sciences? Noreen, just go and, um, to the Google Scholar, or even other way around for, just go to Google Scholar, and then you can, you know what, once you go to Google Scholar and you put in for the area of topic like social sciences, you will get a list of journals that you can use. And once you get the list of the journals, you can use them out specifically to see which is the journal you want and what is the impact factor you want, and you can use it as such. Now, Noreen Ashraf has another question. How will qualitative data be analyzed and presented? Now, that's what I have been trying to explain today for the various data collection methods for qualitative data. And so, please go through the slides and use the similar pattern for it, and so it will be useful for you. Now, Noreen Ashraf asked, my area of research is bibliographic control. Is anybody with library science or bibliographic control backgrounds? Unfortunately, no, but we can only answer the general questions for you as such. Now, Lakman Ahmad Wani says, Sir, my question is, which journal is good to publish papers in commerce students? Now, papers for commerce students per se, what exactly is the area of commerce you are dealing with? Go to Google Scholar, go to PubMed or any of them, post it, you will get the list of the journals, and that you can use for your work. Kuldeep says, how to define performance in relation to management practices. Yes, it's pretty much you define, if you want to define the performance as a quality indicator, what are the practices, what are the variables in the management practices, then how those variables can be used for measurable outcomes. Identify it out, then you will get a scale for rating the performance. Then Ziba says, how to monitor information using sensor. If you are using a sensor, get out the output with the sensor. Then you see what are the variables that are affecting it every time. Like you have temperature, you have pressure, you have what do you call, if there's humidity control and others. So go ahead, use those, and with different temperatures, with different humidities, with different conditions, try to take the readings. And so you will get what exactly is going on and how it is influencing it. Then Uma Shankar has a question. For my research paper on career choice related topic, I've identified 11 variables as determinants that lead to career choice identification of a particular career and collected data. What type of statistical analysis needs to be done to define to these lead to a particular career? Well, can you use Excel because you already have the variables and you have determined them? Is it that in some form of numerical value you can convert it to see which career you can choose? If you can't use Excel, can you use any other formats, or you can just simply put it in the Excel with the various variables and the overall outcome you will understand and see if you can get it going. Idris Adamo says, how are the results of analyzed data presented in research in social sciences? If you are in social sciences and you want to present results, you should go for pictorial representation of the results. See how you can do it based on the variables and the outcomes. Can you code the outcomes that you have? If you can code them, it will be the best because pictorial representation is the best. Deepali Kumari says, how to calculate t-test in MX Excel 2007 and which formula to be used with sample size of 150. Now, irrespective of whichever is the one, if you click on the statistical details, so once you go to the cell in Excel, Deepali, you will get, you feed for statistics, stats, or put the term like t-test, students t-test or t-test, you should get it. I'm not sure if Excel 2007 supports it because I use advanced versions of Excel. So I know that I get it. If you get it for the whole set of the values, apply for the t-test and see what you will get. Polomi says, can there be mining of qualitative and quantitative data in my research? I'm doing PhD in computer science. Yeah, you can do it. You can do the is it mining or mingling? Yeah, okay, sorry. Mingling of quantitative and qualitative. Yeah, you can mingle as far as you know what are you concluding from both. Okay, Kehendi has a suggestion. You need to energize yourself with water. Sir, I like your teaching. Thank you so much. Yeah, sure. I will do that probably because you found that my voice was breaking. Yeah, definitively. That input is always considered. Thanks. Now, Satyavir says, what are the latest guidelines on number of data sampling? Oh, well, which field are you? What is the field in which you're working? Then you have to go back accordingly and look for the national and international guidelines. And so you will get appropriately based on that. Then Kumari says, if a data is given, can we have a dummy variable and frame the hypothesis? You could do it as long as you know what is the variable you are considering. So it should not be a problem. Amrit Deep Kaur says, I need a PPT and recording of full session because I'm at the stage of data interpretation. Sure, you will get it, so you don't have to worry. Kehinde says, how do we have access to other related virtual videos? Yes, well, if you mean to say for the research graduate, that they will provide you. Just write to Tejasvi, she'll give you the access, and so it's not a problem. Venkata Gopalakrishna says, currently most of the research studies were carried out using primary data and secondary data as without being referring to existing knowledge base. So is it obvious to use both? Typically, any research will include a combination of both, and hence I would suggest you use both. Now, Satyavir says, are Google Forms okay for collecting data? Well, the point here, Polomi also asked me, I am not sure of it because Google Forms are somebody who has utilized and used it, and he is the person again who has posted it there probably. Check for the authenticity of it before you use it. If otherwise, if it was already used, you can't use it. Nor, dear sir, can you do do for us more sessions about how to detail in different softwares used for data analysis? Now, the problem with this Nor is that all the most of the softwares which you have are we have to buy. We don't have free softwares which are the best. So if we need to do sessions there, we need to have access to them, which makes it a problem to do it. However, we will see if it is feasible to do. We will consider that option. Satyavir says, how to check if data I'm collecting is correct? Now, well, your interpretation and analysis will tell you if you are correcting the data. So whatever data you collect, try to analyze and interpret it. If it is not making the sense, then that means you're not collecting it properly. Naveen John says, I have done a qualitative study on discovering new factors related to experience of tourists. I would like to include those factors in my main questionnaire. While writing the thesis, should I include the analysis and interpretation of qualitative data in thesis? If yes, where should I place? Oh, that's a big question, John. Okay, you have it already with you. So your question is, where should I include analysis and interpretation of qualitative data in thesis? You have a section called research methodology or methods, a part of it. You can include it there. And then you can say how you did it. Definitively, you have to include because that's the crux of your thesis. Dipali Kumari says, my research work is on women entrepreneurs, so I have framed 3 hypotheses. No significant relation between livelihood of rural and urban women entrepreneurs. Government intervention is ineffective in success of women entrepreneurs. Role of women is not significant in improving the income of family. Which statistical tool to be applied on this? The sample size is 150. If you have such a good size of 150, you could use Excel, or you could use GraphPad Prism, and you can get the statistical significance for each of these, and you could get it going as such. So there is no problem. Dr. Shiv Sankar Das says, can I use case study analysis as part of action research? Yes, you can, and there is no problem. Ronald Tyrone says, what statistical tool is best for testing the significant difference association relationship and multiple variables? You could use GraphPad, you could use Excel. Excel has limited, so you can add the Excel add-on, that's Excel Stat or GraphPad. Any of them could be useful. Parthadas says, what is the right process to use both qualitative and quantitative method in a research? There is no such right process. You need to club both of them at a specific point and do it out. But how you integrate it will depend on how beautifully you connect the data. Now, Shileshi Bekele says, how we analyze qualitative data by statistician software. We can do by standard statistical methods such as SPSS or GraphPad or others. If you are still having issues, write to us and we'll see if we can help you out. Ficado says, what are the quality of journals? Now, that's too broad a question and it doesn't belong to this particular webinar. So we will be considering about it when we cover appropriate webinars. Lukman Ahmadwani says, can you help us to publish research paper for ISSB, no journal in commerce students? You write your query to us. We will search and see if you can find any of them. I says, what do you think, questionnaires are reliable or not? They are available as long as they are being drafted properly. Gunda Srinivas Rao says, how to write mathematical model in inventory model? That is very specific question. Unfortunately, I am not good at it. So maybe we have to look at it as how to do it. Kuldeep says, are research questions as well as research hypothesis both required? Yes, both are required. Our Geeta says, session is very informative and need more topics in research in future. Yeah, sure, we'll do that. Thanks, Geeta. Loretta says, which one is the best data to use for research topic that focuses on creative accounting and bank financial performance? Well, that's too specific. Unfortunately, even I have no idea which one to use. B. Ramakrishna says, shall we start literature study before framing hypothesis? Absolutely. You have to do it. Now, how to form a good questionnaire was Satyavir's question. That is what where I have covered in features and designing a questionnaire. So please go through it and it will be helpful. Okay, then Satyavir says, which journal to publish paper related to managing stress through yoga? You just feed this topic and see which journals will come up. Then you will get automatically to know. Vijaya Kamble says, which journal is best for computer science engineering PhD? Do you have any of those IEEE journals, Vijaya, where you could go through and see? I'm not sure, but IEEE is for engineering people mostly, so you can just check it out. Now, Padam says, please tell me the good number of impact factor for management. That you have to look for all the participants. If you are looking for good impact factor journals, you can search on the Google Scholar or on the PubMed and you could use them out. Okay, so Imsunaro says, thank you for the relevant and insightful presentation. My question is, how reliable are the results obtained from Google Forms? Can we use for close-ended and open-ended? I'm not sure, to all the participants, I'm not sure if Google Forms can be used for questionnaires. If it was, because not only you, others also can use as it is easily available, then you will be landing in trouble. So please check and then accordingly go with it. Nor says when to use heat map and how to analyze it. If you have a huge set of data wherein which you know the differences existing, you can use it. It's particularly, I know of its usage in microarray data in biological sciences. Others I'm not sure of. Pratik says, is data analysis and data management helpful in higher pharma study means? Is it helpful to communicate each other site smoothly? Yeah, it could be, Pratik, no problem. Ziba says, if government officials are unwilling to share registered secondary data, how researchers should justify it? You just say that the data is confidential and not released by the government. So that is also enough. Abhinash says, can we conduct for SPSS tool for data analysis? Just write to Tejasvi and she'll better answer it. Sudhakar says, for reprinting Indian cities and demographic GDP on India map, what is authentic and easy source software? We have to look at it because I also not sure. Maybe you could use, what do you call, if you can't use GraphPad, you have CorelDRAW. Maybe you can use CorelDRAW for doing that. I'm not sure, but you have to try it out. Sarita says, can it be possible to conduct open-ended questionnaires for the doctors? You could. But then, because doctors answer very specifically, it is preferred that you can have a closed-end questionnaire rather than open-end one. Padam says, dear sir, shall I get PhD guide from this organization? That's impossible, Padam. You can check with the coordinators, Tejasvi. She will tell you whether it's possible or not. Suchitra says, sir, I created a questionnaire with Google Forms. The results are in bar diagram and pie chart. Can I use only bar diagram and pie chart throughout my research? Yeah, you can. There is no problem. But be sure to include statistical significance wherever possible. Venkata Gopalakrishna says, is it possible to carry out a webinar on analysis using R or Python exclusively? Well, it depends on if we have experts to do that. Well, we will check about it. Is SPSS good for science research? Vijaya asks. Yeah, it is good. Runuma says, can you analyze my data? My field is of biological science. Yes, we could. You just write to the coordinators and then they will be there to help you out. Okay, we only have 7 more minutes left. So I would request the participants to post back if anything is left as such. Noreen says, how will qualitative... so I have answered these questions. Most of the questions to Noreen I have answered. Tangamani says, sir, will you please share the PPT? Yes, we will share it. So there is no problem. Amanda says, good software for protein or enzymes biology. Good software for protein or enzymes is enzyme biology. You will have in the EMBL softwares. There's a collection of EMBL softwares. Go there and look for. You will exactly get out what you want. But I'm not sure how much of it is free, but you'll definitively get out with whatever you want and how you want. Dr. Muhammad Ismail says, can you arrange a workshop on SPSS and R? Just to check with Tejasvi, and then she's better to answer about it. Yeah, so please go ahead and post your questions and then we will see if we can answer back. You still have another few minutes left. So please go ahead and post your questions if you still have any. Yeah, as it has been returned to all the participants, we'll share the PPT with you. So you don't have to worry about it. You will get it. So don't worry about that. Okay, having said that, I would say that we now proceed. So here are the points to be noted. The participation certificate will be emailed to you between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. You'll get the recording of the webinar and PPT on your email at 2:45 p.m. today. And so a huge thanks for attending the webinar. We already have here, so we have a set of references which are attached, which we have used for this purpose for making today's presentation. And a huge thanks for attending the webinar. We'll see you back shortly at the next webinar. I have another 3 minutes left before I wrap up. So if there are any more questions, you could always go ahead and ask me. I'll wait here. Yeah, that's what, as I said, Amanda, that you go for the EMBL website and then you'll get to know what it is. You have a series of ones which you could use and you could get it done. Suman Saha says, is it compulsory to use qualitative method in legal research papers? Yeah, because there you already have the data, so it will be better if you use qualitative methods. Then Partha Das says, how can we use mixed method approach in one experiment? So yeah, first you pick up the data, so it's qualitative. You have an idea based on which you go to the next step of applying it and quantitatively confirming it. So it will be done. Pratik says, which journal site or group help in M-Pharma study? Well, that's what. For all the participants, don't worry so much about the journal site. You put in your topic as such and go to PubMed, Google Scholar, or any of them, and then they will give you the list of journals which you can use for publishing. So in that way, it will be useful for you. Okay, then Nor says, can you talk more about GraphPad and when to use it, please? Well, for this today's presentation, that much only I can speak. For the remaining part, we shall definitively consider if we can utilize it out as such. Tangamani says, how to contact Tejaswini B, sir. You have the email ID, directly info@researchgraduate, or you have the WhatsApp number. You write to them, they will communicate back to you. Now, Idris Adamo says, how can we solve the problem of registration with you? Now, Tejasvi, just check what are his problems. You just write back Idris to Tejasvi and she will help you out to solve the registration problem. Because once you register with our website, you will get access to all the previous videos where we have conducted the webinars. Dipali Kumari says, can you do a session on statistical methodology like t-test, chi-square, etc.? Maybe, but we have to see if it can be done as such. So having said that, I don't have much time left, so it's a time to wrap up now. A huge thanks for attending the webinar. I hope all you guys have enjoyed this webinar. I will see you back at the next webinar. Thanks a lot and stay safe and take care.